So, perhaps you've heard of this guy called Sandy Munro, who apparently knows a thing or two about manufacturing in the automotive industry. He has some thoughts on Tesla's so-called competition, Chinese electric vehicles, and whether or not Lucid and Rivian are going to make it.
And that's a great segue into the next point here. You know, Tesla fans and, pundits, if you want to call them that, have said competition is coming for a long time. And recently, we see China's BYD surpassing Tesla in electric car sales in the last quarter of 2023.
Yeah, in the last quarter. But if we look at this little chart, we can see here that for the whole year, Tesla sold more than BYD did.
Right.
However, BYD did beat Tesla in the last quarter of last year. Now, what does that mean? Well, in my interview with Elon Musk, I said my prediction is that BYD will be the biggest car company on the planet. That isn't just in EVs. I mean, it will take the place of Toyota and Volkswagen and General Motors.
I definitely agree with a portion of Sandy's comments and prediction here. BYD will be selling more vehicles in the future than Toyota, Volkswagen, pick your automotive manufacturer. I'm not necessarily saying that Sandy named every single one of these companies, but my prediction is Tesla's going to be number 1. BYD is likely to be number 2. And numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will also be Chinese EV manufacturers, meaning that BYD and Chinese EV companies will be selling more electric vehicles, which will be the only vehicles that sell in the future, than any of the Western brands today people know and supposedly love. Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, pick your name. The high volume manufacturers today who are currently producing ICE vehicles in the many millions, up to 10 plus million vehicles per year, a decade from now, if they're still in business, will be lucky to be producing maybe 1 or 2 million, having had their lunch completely and utterly eaten by Tesla and Chinese EV companies. And it's a massive credit to BYD, the fact that they've been able to scale up their fully electric vehicle production, producing more electric vehicles in the final quarter of last year than did Tesla. Keeping in mind, of course, they're selling them for an average price, maybe a third as much as a Tesla vehicle with paper-thin margins. That's certainly helping them. Tesla will eventually get to this price point as well. It's going to take time. If we're honest, a lot of BYD's vehicles, while decent, are cheap Chinese Teslas. Tesla won't, at least at this point, produce vehicles that sacrifice anything, especially not safety. But with the next-gen manufacturing system, I think Tesla has a very good chance of leapfrogging BYD again in total electric vehicles sold per year. Only time will tell. What do you guys think? Let me know a decade from now, maybe longer. Who'll be selling more electric vehicles, BYD or Tesla?
They will not have a chance against BYD. No way, no way. So you look at that, but when you say just the last quarter, it's also important that you keep track of what happened for the whole year. This is the same thing as when all the financial analysts said, oh, the third quarter EV sales have gone down. Oh, this is it. And
there's nothing else to add. I think Sandy and I are on the same page here. If I could, I'd give him a bro fist through the screen.
And, sell your stock or sell short and all this other. When you get into these kinds of things, you have to take a much longer view of what's going on than just that.
Right.
And if we look at last year, we're looking at how many EVs were sold percentage-wise, and you look at this year, and if you read the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or what have you, it comes along giving you the impression that EVs are all done. It was a fad. It's gone now. Let's get back to gas guzzling whatevers. At the end of the day, it's not really that way. Actually, what you do is you look from year to year instead of day to day.
How dare Sandy Munro suggest that you need a time horizon longer than a micropenis? Trolling aside, this is an extremely important point. This video of Sandy, and the one I'm recording now reacting to it, shot in early 2024. And as Sandy points out, in the fake news, the hate stream media, there's been an endless barrage of articles, claims, and opinions, even some with supposed facts to back them up, which are anything but, claiming that EV demand is slowing down, that consumers don't want electric vehicles, that adoption will happen slower than predicted. Spoiler alert, it's going to be much faster than any of the current predictions. And if you actually believe this shit you hear in the fake news, you would think, I thought this disruption was happening. Apparently not. I guess companies who think they'll still be producing ICE vehicles in 2034 are going to be fine. They will be anything but. And this all comes down to time horizon. If you're zoomed in, you're sitting with a magnifying glass, with confirmation bias. As soon as you see something that you think confirms your false hypothesis. Oh, look, demand's slowing down. Over 1 millisecond, 1 week, 1 quarter. Oh, that's proof. I was right. I knew it. EV demand is collapsing. It's over. But again, you zoom out, you look year over year, you see exponential growth. Last year, roughly 10% of all new vehicles sold on the planet were fully electric. 2017 was roughly 1%. So between 2017 and 2023, we've seen a literal 10 times increase in the number of electric vehicles sold. 10 times. Guess what? If that happens again, then now 100% of all new vehicles sold. And if that were to occur over the same period of time, that would mean that before the end of this decade, 100% of all new vehicles sold will be electric. But that's not what you'll hear in the fake news right now. No. EV demand is collapsing. It's over. The ICE vehicle is here to stay.
And you'll find out that, hey, EVs went up quite a bit this year.
Sure.
Next year, I believe it's going to be even more. And I believe about halfway through the year, you're going to see people saying, well, you know, we shut that plant down, or we cut the production at that plant, but I think we're going to be pumping that back up a smidge. And that's what I'm going to see. And the reason for that is because day by day, more people are figuring out that, hey, EVs don't cost as much to charge up as it costs to fill up. Hey, there's no maintenance. I don't need oil changes. I don't need a radiator flush. I don't need on and on and on.
Sure.
Hey, my tires last longer. Hey, I don't use my brakes that much because I'm using regen, which makes me go farther, and it also slows the car down, but it doesn't tear the wheels up, and it doesn't affect the brake pads. So at the end of the day, you start getting this information out, and there's no such thing as range anxiety. And of course, when again back to Ford leading kind of the big companies in the right direction, saying we're going to use the Tesla charging system, and the reason for that is because they work all the time, and right. I don't have to fool with that, and that's not my core competency anyway. So now with people having access, at least with Ford, and well, actually almost all of them now, except for Volkswagen and a few others. Everybody has access, or will have access to the Tesla, the North American charging system. That gives the world a whole different perspective on range anxiety, which I never bought into, anyways. I mean, I went crisscrossed 8,500 miles and did it in 11 days, and I never had any range anxiety. I don't know where that ever came from.
Sure.
But it was obviously some marketeer, not a real person.
My best guess, tinfoil hat alert, is the term range anxiety and the FUD around that most likely came from either and or legacy automotive manufacturers, companies producing ICE vehicles who wanted to continue selling ICE vehicles and saw electric vehicles as a genuine threat, and or folks in the fossil fuel industry for similar reasons. By the way, credit where it's due, the term range anxiety in and of itself, brilliant little marketing tagline. Whether or not it had anything to do with reality, beside the point.
So as we wrapped up the last quarter, BYD started to get the edge on Tesla in terms of sales. Going into 2024, presumably BYD is one of the OEMs that we'll be keeping an eye on. Is there anyone else in industry, any other OEMs that you would see as posing a significant challenge versus Tesla, for example?
Well, what we need to do occasionally is look at somebody else's data, and this, by far, is one of my favorite charts out there. I've shown this about a dozen times, and this is from Car Industry Analysis. These guys did a great job, and you can see here that Geely's got 25 different EVs in the marketplace right now.
So before Sandy gets any further into this, just want to point something out. Tesla is not even on this chart. Why? Well, they don't have enough models to qualify. The cutoff appears to be 6. Let's count Tesla models currently available. S, 3, X, Y, that's 4, plus Cybertruck recently released, that's 5. Yet, despite that, and given the fact that Cybertruck deliveries have only just commenced, we can delete that. With just 4 vehicle models, Tesla sold more vehicles in 2023 than any of the companies on this chart. That emphasizes a few things. One, Tesla knows how to make one category killer per category. We also know the Model Y was the world's best-selling vehicle last year. But from a manufacturing point of view, from an investor's point of view, from a printing money point of view, Tesla has so little complexity in their automotive business, so many parts in common, such scale, that they have an unfair advantage over every one of the companies on this chart. Look, for example, at General Motors with 16 different electric vehicle models available. And how many electric vehicles did they sell in 2023? I think the exact number was fuck all. Volkswagen, 19 different models, and Stellantis, 20. Now, it is true that many of these vehicles are in the very low end, especially with some of the Chinese EV manufacturers. Tesla not competing there at all. We can see a few tiny death machines on wheels here. Great way to sell vehicles, especially without having to compete directly with Tesla. But again, I want to underscore, with just 4 vehicle models, and even if we deleted the S and X and just included 3 and Y, even if we did that, just the 3 and Y alone, combined, 2 vehicle models sold more in 2023 than all models combined from any of these companies, including Geely with 25, Stellantis with 20, 19 from Volkswagen, 16 from SAIC. You get the point.
All over Europe, all over China, all over South America, all over everywhere, right? Coming in second is Stellantis. Now, we don't see much going on here in North America, but then I've kind of predicted that Stellantis is probably going to abandon ship on North America. Their headquarters is for sale right now. They want to get out of that. I haven't heard anything about a new 300 or what are they going to do with the Ram and the Charger, or sorry, not the Ram, but the Challenger and the Charger. I haven't seen a Ram truck that's going to compete with a Lightning, and I can't even hardly imagine it competing with the Cybertruck. So what's happening? So we were talking about predictions. I believe that Stellantis is probably going to move Jeep and Ram somewhere else, probably China. And I believe that they'll just kind of like diminish their involvement here in North America.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Depending on which vehicle line you look at Stellantis, right? They announced the Ram Charger, so they use a 3.6 liter as a range extender, and that I know for sure has created a lot of industry buzz because of the range that it offers, right? That range anxiety thing that you had mentioned, it truly does get rid of that. But you look at other car lines, like I think the Chrysler 300 about a month ago, more or less, I think it was at the tail end of 23, they announced the last Chrysler 300 coming off the line. So yeah, I think there's definitely a question mark out there in some respect with Stellantis, like what's the next major sedan, what does that look like, and in what capacity? Meaning how well will that compete with a Model Y or anything else in North America specifically,
I have my own prediction. I think that most of the North American automotive manufacturers, whether or not they choose to, are going to massively scale back in North America as Tesla eats their lunch and as a wave of Chinese EVs invade the United States and put them essentially out of business. Some of these companies with operations in China may be able to start producing vehicles there that would never be roadworthy outside of China, compete in the low end of the market, and maybe keep selling through some decent volume with very thin margins. As I record this, Tesla still accounts for more than half of all electric vehicles sold in the United States. And none of these companies have a hope in hell of competing with the Model Y or the refreshed Model 3. And spoiler alert, a refreshed Model Y won't be too far off, maybe 12, 18 months, 24 at most. And by then, Tesla's next-gen vehicle will be ramping up and then it's game fucking over. Once again, seems inevitable that the future of the automotive industry is going to be Tesla plus a bunch of Chinese EV manufacturers.
It's interesting.
Well, the North American market is tough. There's no question about it. It's a very difficult market to enter, but when you do get in, if you do make a big splash, you make a lot of money. There's no other market out there where you can make as much money on volume as you can here in North America. Yep. And that's why most people are trying for it. But if you don't understand the market, that's when you lose. And you can lose big if you don't understand the American market. So.
Absolutely. In terms of making money, it's interesting. Tesla's had a trend of continuing to reduce prices.
Yep.
Do you anticipate over the coming months or this calendar year, do you anticipate any other OEMs out there trying to do the same thing in order to keep up with the Joneses, as it were?
Well, I do know that Volkswagen has reduced their cost, Ford's reduced their cost, GM has reduced their cost.
In a similar vein as with the gigacastings, something that I think Tesla in many respects pioneered in the OEM space, but the Chinese market is now following, is the rapid development pace that they're setting.
Yeah.
Right? We used to speak in terms of 5 or 6 year life cycles to develop a vehicle.
Yeah.
and now people are doing it in 3 years, 2 years, 2.5.
2 years and 18 months. So if we look at what Tesla's been doing, okay, with the 3, the Y, the revamping of different things, they seem to have somewhere between an 18 to 24 month schedule. Now the Cybertruck was different, so I asked Elon about it, and it's in the interview. I said, well, how come it took 4 years? Well, I said, well, a little bit had to do with COVID. That slowed us down. We had to change the supply community considerably to go to 48 volts. We had to find a lot of stuff. So they weren't just creating a car, they were creating a new form of industry.
Now, this is a very important point. Cybertruck, a complete revolution in what a vehicle is. The entire supply chain, parts, component suppliers, materials, just about everything, brand new. It wasn't a matter of Tesla just contacting suppliers going, oh, hey guys, we need this, that, and the other. Tesla had to invent a bunch of parts themselves. In addition, had to teach suppliers how to build what they needed. The entire architecture of the Cybertruck is completely new. And even with delays during the scamdemic, plus having to build out an entire new supply chain for Cybertruck, approximately 4 years from first unveil to first deliveries, which is still less time than the typical life cycle from idea to first production of a traditional vehicle. And a traditional vehicle historically has been an incremental improvement on the previous model. Whereas Cybertruck, complete revolution, 800 volts, steer-by-wire, you've heard the spiel. Just goes to show how incredibly fast Tesla moves.
And that is a much bigger job, much more challenging than just, okay, we're going to reskin the car. And that, in the olden days, would take at least 3, sometimes 4 years.
Right.
Now, the Chinese are swapping stuff out. They don't have that same perception that you have to hang on to assets. So the big thing that
Now, just to be clear, this is true with the Chinese EV manufacturers. And spoiler alert, if you have the mindset of many legacy automotive manufacturers and you do want to, quote, hang on to assets, here's what happens. The asset you hang on to is the hull of the Titanic, which is currently sinking, and you cling tightly, eventually you end up at the bottom of the ocean and drown, which is what's going to happen.
we always heard was, well, I got to make sure that we get our money's worth out of these old piece of shit machines.
Dude, spitting facts. By the way, in case you guys are unaware, the sunk cost fallacy is no joke. Sometimes you just got to cut your losses, rip the band-aid off, but psychologically speaking, human beings do not like to do that. Already invested so much, let's try and get our money back, lads. The unwillingness to cut their losses, to take some short-term pain, the desperate impulse to cling to stranded and dying assets is going to ultimately kill many legacy automotive manufacturers. We're seeing an example of this now with Ford and General Motors scaling back their electric vehicle production, a decision they will both come to regret.
Why? They're old and they aren't accurate, and the money that we saved by not buying a new machine, we lost in productivity and excessive labor for trying to fix whatever came out of that machine. Yeah. That's where things again fall apart when you listen to the wrong people, and the wrong people are usually in that situation. Those people are usually people who.
My spidey sense is tingling. I almost feel like Sandy might mention MBAs. He probably won't. Maybe even Harvard. He probably won't, but I'm just saying, if he does, I'm not going to be surprised. A lot of these short-sighted decisions, financially catastrophic decisions, are made by spreadsheet.
Understand only one thing. If I don't spend any money, I'll get a bonus. If I spend money, I'm going to get my hand slapped.
Yeah, they're quick to fail, quick to cut their losses and move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that mentality, again, that's a mentality, that's a culture. And again, you get back to which classification do you put that in? Is it a technological thing or is it a psychological thing? Anything to do with culture, anything to do with changing your mind, anything to change the course of how things are done or the rules and regulations for that course, that's all psychology.
Sandy's hit the nail on the head again, explicitly pointing out the psychological element. As I mentioned earlier, the sunk cost fallacy is a psychological phenomenon.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with technology.
Absolutely. Kind of changing gears, going back to EVs and what we see for 2024, and also looking through the lens of what we saw in 2023. There's been any number of small attempted OEMs, startups that have come out and said, I'll say, trying to be the next Tesla, trying to come up with their own vehicle and do their own thing. Do you believe that some entities like Lucid and Rivian will stick around through 2024 and beyond? Or do you think that they're kind of destined to go into the ground? Like, what do you envision for some of these startups? Because there's no doubt that it is just the market alone, North American market's tough, but the industry is tough.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to Rivian, I believe that they'll be fine.
For what it's worth, I still think it's a coin toss whether or not Rivian survive the decade. A coin toss, which is pretty damn good. They've defied the odds so far. They're still alive. They're scaling. They're not making money yet, but they are growing. And that's the key to eventual profitability. They've also very wisely picked out a niche. They're in the truck market, however. They're not in the work truck market. Don't get me wrong. You can use a Rivian to do a little bit of work truck stuff, but that's not what they're competing with. They're not competing with the F-150s or the Cybertruck. It's more of a lifestyle truck, as I've mentioned in the past. Something that you can throw in your handbag when you go dancing on the weekend, as opposed to a truck you bring to your work site to get truck stuff done. There are no other companies in the United States competing directly with Rivian right now. They can continue to scale until they eventually find out how large their market opportunity is. And of course, they're introducing an SUV and eventually will continue to scale. They're still barely past base camp on the mountain, but they have made progress. Again, personally think it's a coin toss as opposed to Lucid. I think would need about 1,000 consecutive heads in a row to survive.
They have enough diversity in their product that as long as they can get rid of a tremendous amount of weight and redesign the products a little bit more so that they're easier to put together, and maybe what they might have to do is negotiate or maybe take in some of the componentry that they currently outsource to suppliers. Maybe they need new suppliers, maybe they need to take it in-house, I'm not sure, but they've got a higher cost than they should have. But these things are overcomable. You can overcome this, it's not that hard.
Sure.
When you look at Lucid, you've got a different kind of a problem. They've had there's been a lot of noise, but there hasn't been a lot of, performance.
Big hat, no cattle. Again, just for some context, in 2023, for the full year, Lucid delivered 6,001 vehicles. In 2020, when they were luring in dumb fucks who thought they were the next Tesla in their investor presentation ahead of the SPAC, they were projecting 49,000 deliveries in 2023. They were off by roughly an order of magnitude.
I've said it dozens of times and I'll say it forever. Their electric motor system or the drive system is absolutely brilliant.
He's right. And it's an interesting insight, is it not? A company can produce incredible technology, do some incredible engineering, and still fail to sell vehicles and still go bankrupt. Lucid certainly has plenty of bragging rights around range, performance, efficiency, aerodynamics. But you know what they can't brag about? Their success as a business and their probability of still existing a few years from now.
The best that there is out there, but it's expensive, and the rest of the car is outrageously expensive. Now they've got the new one coming out that's supposed to be less expensive and whatnot, but I don't see them flying off the showroom floor, and so consequently, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what they're going to do, but I do know one thing. They're funded by Saudi Arabia, the country Saudi Arabia, and people were throwing rocks at Mary Barra for making money. Peter Rawlinson made over $200 million, and I really don't see much in the way of results. So
fair points from Sandy. In terms of results so far, hello, Lucid 2020 in the SPAC presentation to Dumbfucks project 49,000 vehicles delivered in 2023. The reality, 6,001. Well, to be really clear, I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with people who produce results being compensated accordingly. If an executive, a CEO, helps their company make $20 billion in a year, I'm totally fine with them being compensated $1 billion+. It's chump change in the scheme of things relative to the value they added, the results they produced. But the fact that Peter Rawlinson here is being compensated to the tune of literal hundreds of millions of dollars, while the company he leads is fucking up, is falling catastrophically, embarrassingly, absurdly short of their own projections from just a few years ago, is failing to sell vehicles despite spending stupid money advertising. Mate, I thought advertising worked. It's outrageous that this guy's being compensated to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in total comp. It's outrageous. In my opinion, the single biggest red flag in any electric vehicle startup is a founder/CEO being compensated anything above a minimum wage, including stock options, if said company is falling short of their goals, their public targets, and their projections. On the flip side, like I said, you help your companies absolutely hit it out of the park and you're crushing it, you should get paid and compensated obscene amounts. People get really triggered about this. I think professional athletes, many of them are massively underpaid. I think many CEOs are massively underpaid. If you bring massive value, you should be compensated accordingly. But on the flip side, if you suck fucking shit, if you're driving your company into the ground, if you're not hitting your targets, if you're making public statements like Mary B. Aspara, falsely claiming that they'll be outselling Tesla by X time, and then you're scaling back your targets, that's where I take issue with obscene compensation. At the highest levels, CEOs running multi-billion-dollar companies, I think all should have compensation that is directly tied to performance. If/when, and I really mean when, Lucid files for bankruptcy, I look very much forward to looking through the total compensation received by Peter Rawlinson as he drove his company towards an inevitable bankruptcy.
So I believe that some companies might have to get bailed out, or maybe they'll just pack up the whole thing and ship it off to Saudi Arabia and try and sell it to the Arab nations. I'm not sure, but I know one thing for sure. I don't see how Faraday is going to make it. I don't see Lucid being hugely profitable anytime soon. There's a few of them out there that are like that, and I don't see a way forward for them.
Yeah.
But you never can tell. Something could happen, but they don't look to me as being anybody who wants to put another luxury car into the marketplace and wants to try and compete with a new electric EV Bentley or Rolls Royce or whatever. You got a really tough uphill battle with that. I don't know how you're going to do it. But if you look at, actually one thing we should look at is the new technologies that are out there, and one of them being, hey, guess what? We got sodium batteries now, don't need any lithium.
Right.
Oh, if we need lithium, we got new processes like Energy X. We got a new process there to take lithium out of salt water or brine. It's different than salt water.
Yep.
And they take it out of brine, and guess who's doing it as well? Oh, Exxon. So we're looking at lots of different new things that are coming up that could change the whole complexity or everything basically associated with the most expensive part of any of the electric vehicles, and that's the battery.
Yep.
True. However, even without any new breakthroughs in battery chemistry, just incremental improvements over time, economies of scale, the cost of batteries will continue to predictably decline. My personal guess, it is an educated guess however, we're looking at about a 35% cost decline within half a decade or so, probably 50+%, well within a decade, and the cost declines will continue. It's also possible that some major breakthroughs in the coming years and decades could cause a dramatic decrease in the cost of the batteries, which, as Sandy points out, batteries are the most expensive, by far the most expensive thing in electric vehicles. In some vehicle models, accounting for $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000+ of cost, some cases even more than that. And as we know, a linear decrease in the price of a vehicle causes an exponential increase in the number of people who can afford it. Later part of this decade, extremely compelling long-range electric vehicles will be available for a fraction of the cost of what today consumers will pay for an ICE vehicle for comparable performance. Declining battery costs are obviously something that very few of the supposed experts who are forecasting EV adoption into the future, which is way too slow and low, are taking into account.
If the battery price goes down significantly because of we're going to use sodium or lithium now is cheap, or any number of different things that could happen. If we've got that, who's going to stand in the way of EVs then?
Yeah, absolutely. If one of these guys can, it's a race to get to that technology and implement it in a vehicle. You get there first, I would say your future is, certainly much better than it was before. Yeah. And everyone's scrambling to get there for sure. In a similar light, but away from the product and looking at manufacturing, AI is coming about.
So let's recap. Sandy Munro quite firmly believes that Chinese electric vehicles are going to make up a major portion of all vehicles sold globally in the future. And many of today's legacy automotive manufacturers, high volume legacy automotive manufacturers, are going to see their sales collapse. I completely agree. He also believes that BYD will be the world's #1 automotive manufacturer by units sold in the future. He might be right. I still think my money's on Tesla though. Give them that next-gen vehicle, ramp that up, the modular manufacturing system, look out. And I think also, if we read between the lines, Sandy Munro believes that many companies, including those he named explicitly like Lucid, and many he didn't name directly, perhaps I will, like Nikola, Fraudstown Motors. He did mention Faraday Future. I'm going to also throw out Fisker and a load of others are completely and utterly fine. Sorry, I mispronounced fucked. Sandy also predicting that Rivian are going to make it. I still think that's a coin toss, but they're pretty good odds considering the probability of any company going bankrupt that tries to produce vehicles at scale. If history is anything to go by, if Rivian survives, it's going to be roughly the second US automotive manufacturer to start up in the last century that didn't end up going bankrupt. That'll be a remarkable accomplishment. Still wouldn't be betting on it, but so far so good, Rivian. Keep it up. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. It's an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a fuck ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point. It's something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, This is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, snake oil salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro. When I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links at the pinned comment, see you over on Twitter and or Patreon, and don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.